We had the very anticipated featherweight rematch, Rafael El Divino Espinoza, as he took on Robeisy Ramirez. The outcome was crazy, man.
The fight got stopped because Espinoza broke Robeisy Ramirez's eye. It turns out that it could have been an elbow that actually caused Ramirez's bone to be broken.
Social media was going crazy about it. Was it an elbow or not?
Call a spade a spade. He turned his back on his opponent. If it was the actual elbow that broke his eye, then he should have complained right then and there.
Is it enough for people to discredit the win for Espinoza?
He broke his eye. How much do you want him to sacrifice?
Now, the main event was a rematch as well, featuring Emmanuel Navarrete as he took on Oscar Valdez. He completely crushed Oscar Valdez, and he made it look so easy.
When Navarrete is at 100%, he can compete against anybody at the 130 and I believe at the 135 division.
Welcome back to another episode of the Last Round Podcast, where we cover everything from traditional boxing to influencer boxing and everything in between. In today's episode, we'll be discussing and talking about this past weekend's 3 fights, including Robeisy Ramirez as he suffered a TKO loss over El Divino Espinoza, as well as Emmanuel Navarrete's dominant win over Oscar Valdez, and lastly, the new 140 champion in Richard Hitchins. But before we get into the episode, make sure to like and subscribe and follow us on all forms of social media. Lastly, don't forget to join our Discord. We're trying to build up a community, and you guys joining the server is greatly beneficial for us. But now jumping into the episode. This past weekend we had, boxing has the tendency of putting events on events, and so people have to go from Top Rank to Matchroom Boxing to PBC to Pro Box. You got to put your attention to a bunch of different boxing programs, and this past weekend we had Top Rank and Matchroom Boxing go head to head, where we saw Emmanuel Navarrete headline against Oscar Valdez, and we also saw Matchroom headline with Richardson Hitchins as he took on Paro for the 140 belt. But first, I want to go over the co-main event for Top Rank. We had the very anticipated featherweight rematch, and Rafael El Divino Espinoza as he took on Cuban gold medalist Robeisy Ramirez. Now, this fight last year around this time was named as Fight of the Year, where we saw also not only Fight of the Year, but Upset of the Year. And a lot of people, were saying maybe it was a fluke. Robeisy Ramirez maybe didn't take El Divino Espinoza too serious, and he was upset by that. So we were finally able to get the anticipated rematch, and this fight the outcome was crazy, man. Absolutely crazy.
Yeah, I don't know if I were to say it lived up to the hype, especially compared to the first fight, because the first fight, Fight of the Year, Upset of the Year, amazing back and forth action. Both fighters knocked each other down. This fight was a little bit different. This fight, I don't know, it was I felt it ended right before we started getting into the real action. The fight ended, what was it, the 5th round? 6th round? The 6th round, the fight got stopped because Robeisy Ramirez broke, or I guess I should say Espinoza broke Robeisy Ramirez's eye. He broke his orbital bone, and Robeisy was not able to continue. And it's kind of crazy to see, Espinoza coming off a clear career-defining victory against Robeisy in the first fight, defending his title one time, and then beating Ramirez again. I mean, it just shows you that Espinoza is here to stay.
Yeah, and to be honest, I think no one was expecting that Robeisy was gonna quit. Like, call it what it is. Yeah, I know some of the commentators were going back and forth, but he quit. You know what I'm saying? He was seeing double vision, and so Robeisy, in his own words, said, "I agree with my choice with getting with the fight not continuing for me to stop it." And that was a big surprise because this is a guy who is a decorated amateur, such an elite fighter that I think a lot of times we don't really see elite fighters quit like that, especially when they receive a fracture like that. A lot of them are just they tough it out. They're able to adjust and continue, and that was such a surprise to me.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, that's been the criticism, right, with Ramirez, right? You know, he quit, he broke his eye, and he said he waved it off. Referee stopped the fight. It was kind of an anticlimactic ending, honestly. But the problem is like, he broke his eye. Like, he could not see. How much do you want him to sacrifice, you know? When we're talking about a broken eye, a broken orbital bone, more specifically, I mean, that could get dangerous, especially with a guy like El Divino Espinoza. I mean, he was just getting started. You could tell he was starting to ramp up the pressure and the volume of punches. So for Ramirez, I mean, he's thinking to himself, we're barely getting into the middle of the fight. There's still so much rounds left, and my eye, I'm already seeing double vision. Is this really worth continuing? I don't know if it is. I wouldn't say Ramirez quit that night.
Well, I feel like just as a fight fan, it's almost as if like I'm eating a sandwich and I bite the crust, and then right before I'm about to get to the inside, like I just stop. That's kind of how it felt. Like it felt like what do you call it? Like a tease type ordeal.
It was like a
I got
blue ball.
balled. Yeah.
yeah, it was like a blue ball type of situation. You know what I'm saying? It was heating up to be a fantastic fight, but I don't know, man. And we have even thrown in the actual factor that was the socket in the wrench. I don't know how the expression goes. Ramirez, it turns out that it could have been an elbow from Espinoza that actually caused, you know, Ramirez's bone to be broken.
Yeah, that's the main debate going on online. Was it an elbow or not? And you know, people are claiming, oh, look back at the 5th round. Because even early on, the referee had warned Espinoza about the elbow, like in the 2nd round, I believe. But people are coming out with tapes or with replays of the 5th round where it appears that Espinoza throws the right hand and unintentionally catches Robeisy in the eye. And here's my thing with that. Also, Robeisy himself said that it was in the 4th round that he got hit in the eye and that he complained to the ref. The referee scolded him, saying like, "No, keep going." But he said the 4th round. The Top Rank News, you know, the people in charge of looking for the replays, found no elbow whatsoever. So that's why a lot of people are waving it off, saying, you know, it was nothing. But I saw the clip in the 5th round, and it does appear that he does get connected with an elbow in the 5th. But it was unintentional. It happens. I mean, is it enough for Espinoza, or is it enough for people to discredit the win for Espinoza?
I mean, I feel it kind of takes away some of the, you know, I mean, because let's say, okay, Espinoza stopped Ramirez like that in the 6th round with a punch. I mean, he's continuing that high in his career. You know, he's the momentum surrounding Espinoza. He's becoming a really big name now. You know, he's defended his belt twice now. But if it was an elbow, I mean, according to the rules, I believe it should have been a no contest. So I do believe it does kind of discredit the win, whether or not it was an elbow that broke Robeisy Ramirez's eye.
Well, I guess that's your opinion. Not with the commission in Arizona. They didn't see a problem with it, and it was clean and whatnot. For me, though, I think it's pretty... I mean, the stats for him to elbow his opponent is pretty high because he's such a tall guy, lengthy guy. His wingspan is fucking crazy for a featherweight. And so, yeah, I mean, that probably happened on accident, I think, because it kind of looked like he was throwing a combination. He just kind of like was going to throw a hook, and he just kind of like elbowed him or kind of put his forearm into his face. But Robeisy, he said something, but he didn't claim that he was seeing double vision. It wasn't until he got hit with the right hand directly into the eye. Boom. He was like, oh, yeah, I'm seeing double vision. So I don't think that should be like that's a good win for Divino.
Well, I was going to say this. I was going to say... What was I going to say? Here you go.
So, okay. Well, we can bring this to a very simple example. What about headbutts? So, let's say with Bronco Lara against Josh Warrington in their 2nd fight. That fight got stopped because of an accidental headbutt from Josh Warrington that caused a massive cut on top of Bronco Lara's eye. Crazy cut, and the fight got pushed to a no contest because it hadn't passed the 4th round. But if it would have passed the 4th round, I suppose it would have gone to the scorecards. Maybe that with the accidental headbutt, obviously Well, I guess it could be debated whether or not Josh Warrington was doing that on purpose or not, you know?
Yeah.
But it was an accidental headbutt according to the commission, and they called it a no contest. For this fight, it was in the 5th round or the 6th round, fourth round that this supposed elbow was landed and the supposed fracture happened. Maybe it should have gone to the scorecards, or maybe it should have gone, to or a no contest if it was, before the 4th or something.
Yeah.
I feel that should happen because, it's not really fair. I feel like it's not really fair for Ramirez. He didn't do anything wrong, and Espinoza didn't do anything wrong either. Both of them are pretty innocent, so I feel, I don't know, it depending whether or not you believe it was an actual elbow that caused the broken eye, I feel that should dictate the outcome of the fight.
Yeah, I think that's what it is, but for me, like, if it was the actual elbow that broke his eye, then he should have complained right then and there. Ramirez, right then and there in the 4th or 5th round, there, whatever round he's claiming that he got elbowed, he should have complained, and then they would have gone to a no contest and whatnot. Instead, he kept going. He kept fighting. So the last punch or the last time he got hit was by that right hand. In your case with Warrington and Bronco Lara, the fight got stopped right when the Bronco got hit with the headbutt. It wasn't headbutt and then let's go for 2 more rounds and be like, the headbutt is fucking me up or whatever.
Also, El Bronco and Warrington, that didn't even make 4 rounds. That was like in the 3rd round.
But let's say it happened in the 5th round. It would have just gone to the scorecards.
Yeah,
so it just depends.
It's after the 4th, no?
So then should this fight have gone to the scorecards?
But the referee had already warned the judges, and it was already known. Already saw that there's headbutts. Bronco's already cut from a headbutt prior to the stoppage. Whereas in this fight, the referee never told the judges, elbows, maybe Robeisy is hurt from an elbow, or maybe some apparent damage from the elbow. It was never told. He just got a scolding. He got a scolding, but afterwards the scolding, did the referee ever warn Espinoza about the elbow? To my knowledge, he didn't warn him. That was the last time he got a scolding, was in the 2nd round, I believe. So if anything, Robeisy should have probably put more emphasis on the elbow, saying, hey, he keeps catching me, this and that. My issue, though, is I think this fight, like you said, it was warming up. It started heating up a bit. And I saw the tides turning a lot towards Ramirez or towards Espinoza. And based on what I was saying, I was like, hey, this is not going to go good for Robeisy anymore. So, if anything, I feel this was the best option for Robeisy Ramirez to stop the fight. Because if the fight would have gone any longer, I just see Divino just absolutely dominating. Because that 5th and then that 6th round, he started off well. But that 5th round, he started heating up. And I'm telling you right now, that's not good news. Because Espinoza for this fight, compared to his first fight with Robeisy Ramirez, was a lot different. He was a lot more calculated, a lot more calm, trying to be less volume, more trying to trying to box a little bit. And Ramirez also brought in a different game plan, which also could have affected it. But it was a completely shift in strategy from the first to the second fight.
Yeah, and I think it is true. I feel sometimes this usually happens with a lot of these fights where an accidental headbutt or an accidental elbow, it happens in the fight, and all the fans focus on is that specific moment, and we can't even talk about the actual fight and what was actually going on. I think you bring up a good point that in the beginning half of this, or not the half, I guess, the beginning half of this fight, the first two rounds, Ramirez was looking amazing. He was moving, he was using his footwork, and Espinoza seemed like he was a little too slow. He couldn't let his hands go. Boom. Then once we start getting to the 3rd to maybe the 5th round, 6th round, we see Espinoza starting to heat up. We see Espinoza starting to land some hard punches. So I don't know. It's still early in the fight to definitively say that, Divino Espinoza was going to win the fight. But all signs show that he was starting to take control. And for Ramirez, it's unfortunate that, some elbows were thrown in there on accident. It wasn't on purpose. It wasn't malicious. but accidental headbutts and accidental elbows do happen. So I don't know. I feel it's tough for Robeisy because, you know, if he sticks to his plan, or if he sticks to the story that Espinoza elbowed him, the fans are just going to call him, you know, they're going to be like, you're making excuses. The fans are just going to clown him. And I don't think it's fair to him either.
Yeah. Well, for me, I'm not going to clown him, but I mean, I'm going to stick that word. He quit for sure. And, you know, it's not a bad idea. You know, he's going to go and fight another day.
Wait. Hold on. You're not going to clown him, but you're going to say he quit?
He quit. I mean, those are his actions. That's what he showed Saturday night.
I think for a fighter,
he turned around and he went like this. No mas.
I think for a fighter, that's pretty much the same thing. I mean,
look, here's the thing. There was another guy that everyone was calling him a quitter, and that's Daniel Dubois. And look what happened. He became a world champion again. He became a world champion. He came back from that devastating fight that he had with Joe Joyce. And look at that. Now he's on top of the world now. The same thing can happen with Robeisy, but call a spade a spade. He turned his back on his opponent.
Yeah, it was definitely not a good look, especially because after the fight ended, you know, social media was going crazy about it because it was such a very, like you said, anticlimactic way to end the fight. But people were comparing it to other fighters, you know, like Naoya Inoue, when Inoue fractured his orbital bone against Donaire in the first fight back in 2019. They were saying, oh, Donaire, Inoue, he toughened it out. He broke his orbital bone, like, you know, early on in the fight, and he toughened it out. And they even look at Margarito. They're like, oh, Margarito was also messed up. You know, his eye was destroyed, and yet he still toughened it out. Why couldn't Robeisy toughen it out?
Well, I feel like it has. Well, before you answer, I think it has to do with maybe race a little bit. When Naoya got his eye broken, his eye got bigger almost. Robeisy's got like smaller almost. So I think it was a little hard for him to see. But I think it kind of helped Naoya Inoue in that moment.
Oh no, yeah, there's definitely a different standards for races in boxing. That's 100% the truth. But I think it's a little bit of a false comparison, I would say, mainly because even with Dubois as well, they got their eye broken from a punch. If we're talking an eye broken from a punch from Espinoza that landed, okay, then I will concede. But if it was actually an elbow, and we might never know, honestly. This fight, it's not like Robeisy. I don't think is going to go to the commission and say, hey, review the tape and all this type of stuff. I don't think that's going to happen. So this fight is just going to stay. The outcome is going to stay like it is. The boxing fans might never get a true answer. But if it actually was an elbow, an illegal shot that broke Robeisy's eye, then I believe that is a bit different than a punch that breaks a fighter's eye.
Well, now, regardless of it, commission and everyone is giving the victory towards El Divino Espinoza, and now he successfully defends his title for the second time. And there's a lot of options for him at 126. And you know what? I'm going to say this right now. The best fight in boxing has to be between El Divino Espinoza and Nick Ball.
What?
Yes.
Let me explain. Tell me, when are you ever gonna see a 6'1" fighter take on a 5'2"? That's never gonna happen, never again. I'm telling you right now, that's the best fight. You gotta see it, man. It's crazy. I mean, the tallest featherweight champion against the shortest featherweight champion. It's gonna be a funny matchup.
I think I can already see the sayings. David versus Goliath.
Oh
So
my God.
Yeah.
Well, it's because Espinoza is like the fundora for the 126 for the featherweight division. I mean, he's 6'1", fighting at 125. I mean, you don't get anyone at that frame fighting at that division.
Is Espinoza taller than the heavyweight Mexican? Oh my God, Andy Ruiz.
I think Andy like 6'2".
Okay,
Yeah.
but they're like the same height. How the hell? That literally makes no sense.
It's crazy, which is why I need to see 6'1" Espinoza take on 5'2" Nick Ball. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, low-key, that fight would be actually a stylistic matchup. They both like to brawl, and it'd be a very interesting way of seeing how Nick Ball is able to deal with such a longer fighter, in the fact that it's gonna be hard for him to even find sparring for that.
I mean, is he even going to be able to land without jumping up?
Maybe on body shots.
Yeah, maybe the body shots, but with Nick Ball, like you said, his style is just like clashing towards his opponent. He doesn't really, he like blitzes in. He's like a lunge forward type of fighter.
He's a cannonball.
Yeah,
Oh, shit.
he's a cannonball. So what is he gonna do when his opponent's head is a foot taller than him?
I mean, Robeisy is 5'5", and I mean he was still able to connect, but we're talking about 5'2" at this point.
3 inches is all that matters.
Oh, that's crazy.
Plus, and I think Nick Ball's wingspan looks a lot shorter. He looks like he has T-Rex arms too, so that doesn't help him at all either.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, man. I need to see that matchup. I mean, Nick Ball taking on Rafael Espinoza. I mean, that matchup would go crazy.
It would be it's like the matchup of like freak shows. It's like a clown circus type of match, like a 6'9" guy going up against a midget or something like that.
That's crazy. But yeah, so after the fight, Espinoza has a lot of options, a lot of opportunities to maybe unify. A lot of people are trying to push Bruce Carrington. They're both with top rank. Bruce Carrington is ranked number 2. He's his number 2 mandatory or challenger for Ramirez's or Espinoza's belt. So there's a lot of options for him. Angel Leo, the one who just knocked out El Venao. So Brandon Figueroa. I mean, there's a lot
Vargas as well.
Ray Vargas.
He's in recess or whatever.
He's in recess,
Yeah.
but it's still. I mean, Espinoza now he's at a point in his career that he has a lot of options. This is the best moment of his career, and if I were him or if I were in his team, I would try to pin him up against another big name, unify the division. And I mean, maybe you can see Espinoza become undisputed, man. He's got the frame for it. He's got the volume. He's got the punch. He's got a lot of things in his favor that would make him a very big problem at 125. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about for this matchup between Robeisy and Espinoza?
No, he's the real deal. I mean, he showed Saturday night that he's here to stay and possibly he's going to unify.
Well, that leads us on towards the main event. Now, the main event was a rematch as well, featuring Emmanuel El Vaquero Navarrete as he took on Oscar Valdez, where they were pinned up last year back in August with Navarrete coming out with a very easy, decisive, unanimous decision win. But this rematch was a lot different. I'm telling you right now, this rematch was not what I was expecting. I was expecting Valdez to have more success, to be a bit closer based on Navarrete's past performances. He has not looked the best. But I feel like Navarrete turned back the clock, man. This version of Navarrete that appeared against Oscar Valdez this past weekend was brutal. This man I'm telling you, he's a world beater. He completely crushed Oscar Valdez, and he made it look so easy. I mean, it was incredible seeing how Emmanuel Navarrete, when he's on game, he's a different beast.
Yeah, that's the prime Navarrete that we know and love. You know what I'm saying? Navarrete used to be one of my favorite fighters, and he suffered a couple bad performances. There's been a little bit of doubt on his name. A failed attempt to move up to 135 was unsuccessful. He went back down to 130, and Valdez was looking at him like, hey, I want my rematch. But no, Navarrete came out amazing. This was a fantastic performance from him. And I think it's perfect what you said. He turned back the clock. He was what we once knew. That's the Navarrete that's like dangerous. That's the Navarrete that's, when he's on his A game, when he's a 10 out of 10, he is a dangerous fighter for anybody.
Yeah, this was a great performance. He stopped a guy who has never been stopped, another tough Mexican. So, I mean, that was really good. And plus, he did a lot better than what he did his past few fights and in this first encounter with Valdez Navarrete. So, really interesting to see that. He sustained 3 knockdowns, Valdez. So, wow, tremendous. It's interesting to see where Navarrete goes from here, because I was not expecting him to stop Valdez.
Yeah, from the first bell, I mean, the first round was absolutely already fireworks. I mean, both Valdez came out trying to assert dominance, to kind of set the pace, to kind of get respect immediately from Navarrete. And I believe that's what, he ended up paying the price for it. I mean, he came out too strong. I think they were hoping that Navarrete, since he was kind of a slow starter, that they could take advantage, maybe hurt him early on in the fight. But all it did was allow Navarrete to get his range with Valdez. And once he got his range with Valdez, I mean, he absolutely obliterated it. I mean, first round, he dropped and was a beautiful right hand right behind the ear. I mean, Valdez was hurt, man. And he was hurt multiple times throughout the fight. I mean, I'm telling you right now, this was a very brutal form of Navarrete. And it makes me happy because, I mean, I've always been a fan of Navarrete, and seeing, his past fights, how he's not looked at all good. I mean, his last good fight was probably like at 126. And so seeing him perform the way that he performed against Valdez, not only, I didn't see him lose any round. Mm-hmm. He swept him, and not only did he sweep him, he whooped him. Mm-hmm. Everyone online was saying, oh my gosh, like, stop the fight at this point, because Valdez even before midway through the fight, they were saying Valdez is going to need a knockout.
Yeah, this was a one-sided beatdown. Completely, you struggled to even give a minute of a round to Valdez, because Navarrete was just that much in his A game. So it was a good weekend to be a Navarrete fan. It was a great weekend to be a Navarrete fan. To be an Oscar fan wasn't that good. And I did see some people online saying, I'm a bit sad that Oscar Valdez lost, because he's like, I do like him. I do like his story. I don't have anything against him. I wouldn't say he's one of my favorite fighters, but I don't mind him. But when he goes up against Navarrete, I knew it. I called it last episode. I was saying the style just isn't compatible with one of Navarrete. A lot of people talk down and criticize Navarrete because of how awkward he fights. He doesn't look picture perfect. He's not a Shakur Stevenson. He's not a Terrence Crawford. He hasn't mastered the fundamentals of boxing. But that does not mean that he is a bad fighter. When Navarrete is at 100%, he can compete against anybody at the 130 and I believe at the 135 division.
Well, I think he's a great fighter for sure, but at 135, I'm not sure if he's there yet, or it just kind of depends on the opponent. But I think at 135 is probably the max, the highest weight class that Navarrete could fight at.
Do you think it's because of the weight?
I think it is because of the weight.
Well, the thing is, he came into this fight against Valdez, 148 on fight night. It's pretty heavy.
Yeah,
that's very heavy.
That is very heavy, but I think just that at 135, I think he's met up his match with opponents being able to handle his power a little bit more. I think that's what it is for me in my case, because he's a fighter that started at 122, and so at 135, I think it's noticeable, and he's not a big guy either. So I think at 135 is the max that he can go. But for Navarrete, like, what's next from here? I know O'Shaquie Foster was there at the fights.
Yeah, I mean, you got Anthony Casey, also O'Shaquie Foster, Navarrete, and Lamont Roach. Casey just fought Josh Warrington back in September. Lamont Roach is set to fight Gervonta Davis. The only really realistic fight would be O'Shaquie Foster. And O'Shaquie Foster already has the experience of taking on a Mexican and Rocky Hernandez, and not only taking on a Mexican, but taking on a Mexican in his hometown. And let me tell you, wherever, if they have the let's say O'Shaquie Foster and Navarrete were to fight, and they were to fight again right there in Arizona, it's going to be a pro Navarrete fight. So it's essentially Mexico 2.0 in terms of the perspective of O'Shaquie Foster. But I feel that's the most legitimate or the most realistic matchup, because first off, both fighters are for top rank. And second off, they're timeline wise, schedule wise, they both would be ready for a matchup sometime in maybe in the first quarter or the second quarter of 2025. So unification should be on site for Emmanuel Navarrete, especially with this performance. I mean, I know this performance probably shook a lot of people, saying, "Oh my gosh, like we were not expecting this type of Navarrete showcase for a fight." So a lot of, Navarrete made a statement. He removed a lot of doubt. He didn't remove too much doubt from me personally. I mean, I'm very impressed with it. But if he's able to unify, let's say go for unification and replicate this type of performance against O'Shaquie Foster or another champion at 130 or a big name contender at 130, then I will be impressed and I will be, my doubt will diminish and maybe I will start hyping up Navarrete once again. But for right now, I'm just very impressed by the way he performed this past weekend.
Well, yeah, that's the scary thing, right? There's a reason why there was doubt on Navarrete's name was because his last couple of fights, he hasn't looked the best. And it's a great sign that in this fight, he looks amazing. But how are we going to know if next fight he's going to look amazing or he's going to look mediocre? We don't know. And that's kind of the thing that is difficult for like fans because we don't know exactly how these fighters are preparing. And for Navarrete, it's so bad. It starts becoming really bad when a fighter is kind of like a hit or miss on one night. One night he switched on, super motivated for his opponent, and he gives out a good performance. And then the next fight, maybe it's a lower ranked guy or someone who's not well known, and he is not that motivated. He doesn't train that hard, and he gives a mediocre performance. So it's tough. Hopefully Navarrete took his last fight, his last defeat as a wake-up call saying, hey, and then he sees this fight and he's like, okay, when I'm switched on, I'm dangerous. Valdez couldn't even touch me. Valdez did nothing to me at all. So let's continue to be switched up every single fight going forward.
Yeah, because that's the only way he could win. You know what I'm saying? Training 110% and just coming in like a wrecking ball, throwing nonstop punches top to bottom. Well, one thing I do want to bring up, though, is, not to take anything away from Navarrete, but he did fight another Mexican who, Valdez isn't a guy who moves around the ring. He's not super technical. He's not super, involved into the fundamentals of boxing like Shakur, Baranchenk. Yeah, do you guys believe that even Navarrete at 110% could go up against a guy who is more of a boxer? Could he still beat a boxer? He lost against Baranchenk.
I would say Navarrete should stick to fighting brawlers, fighting people who are come forward, who are willing to engage in in close combat. Because if he, I said this before he even fought Baranchenk, or when he was going to make his debut at 135, if Navarrete were to fight Shakur would outclass him. And I still hold that belief to this day. Navarrete stylistically would not match up too well against a very slick boxer like a Shakur, Devin Haney, even Gervonta Davis. So if I were Navarrete, I would kind of stick to the Oscar Valdez types of styles, styles that cater more towards you and are able to make you look spectacular. O'Shaquie Foster, he does box well, but O'Shaquie Foster, if he's put into the situation, he will brawl with you, as shown with Rocky Hernandez. So, and also Lamont Roach is also a good slick boxer, but he's out of the picture for right now. And I don't think he's at a level comparable to a Shakur or at a very elite level at that point. So yeah, I think that Navarrete, his style suits better with brawlers, and I think he should stick with that style.
I think he should stick to that style, but I definitely think he can fight boxers. People will consider O'Shaquie Foster a boxer. Now, is he on the level of Shakur Stevenson? No. I mean, there's very few that are on the boxing level of Shakur Stevenson. So, I mean, if you're going to put up Navarrete with the literal best example of a pure boxer in the sport of boxing, like Shakur Stevenson, then yes, okay, he might lose. But if you're gonna say just because he loses to Shakur, he can't fight boxers, I think that's a bit. I think that's a little bit too. It's a bit of a stretch. So I think he can fight O'Shaquie, and honestly, I think he beats O'Shaquie if he is motivated and he fights like he did against Valdez. I definitely think that level and that version of Navarrete has the skills to beat O'Shaquie Foster, even Lamont Roach, if Lamont Roach wasn't fighting Tank Davis. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of possibilities for him because, honestly, he's a big guy, too. He did look kind of big in the ring on Saturday. So, honestly, I would not be surprised if he does another move to 135 to test out the waters again. I would not be surprised.
Well, Also, people were saying that he looked like your typical Mexican.
It's true. He's so like there's no muscle tone.
He's built like a Mexican.
He's built like he's got like a big stomach. He doesn't really have like biceps or he doesn't really have big arms. He just looks skinny but somehow he packs a punch and he has a great gas tank. How did this work?
And a good chin. Oscar Valdez landed 46% of his power punches on Navarrete. And we never saw Navarrete fold. We never saw him hurt at any instant during the fight. So that tells you a lot about the fighter that Navarrete is, man. Maybe he's coming up. All you need is some Coca-Cola, some pizza,
and some tacos.
And just a training camp, and then you're good to go, man. Who needs a nutritionist when you're Mexican at that point? But so that was the top rank headliner featuring Emmanuel Navarrete as he returned in brutalizing form against Oscar Valdez, and also the Robeisy Ramirez as he took the TKO loss against El Divino Espinoza. Moving on from Top Rank towards Matchroom, we had the headliner for the 140 belt featuring Liam Paro taking on Richard Hitchins. Now, this fight was very interesting in the aspect that Liam Paró has had a very exciting climb to the top. He took out Montana Love, and then he took out the boogeyman Subriel Matias, and now he was out here defending his belt for the first time back in Puerto Rico against Richardson. Hitchins, his first time fighting for a belt at 140. And Hitchins, I mean, he's had beef with Devin Haney. He's had beef with a lot of these top names at 140. He's been calling out people, all the other champions like Teofimo and such for a showdown. But, I mean, he never really had the credibility due to not being a champion or never even fighting for a world champion at that point of his career. But now he took on Liam Paro and made it look so easy. He easily dismantled Liam Paro and is now the official new IBF 140 world champion. So what does this mean for Richard Hitchins now?
Well, he's definitely, a king. He's like one of the kings at 140, and I'm sure he's feeling fucking amazing. But really quickly, you said, it was easy for Hitchins, and I think it was. I think the average fan that watched the fight can conclude that Hitchins clearly won that fight, but the judges didn't agree.
There was like one judge that gave it 117, 111 to Paro.
Yeah, I think it was 116, 112 to Paro.
Okay. Yeah.
But still, I could not. There's no way in my mind that Paro won more rounds than Hitchins in that fight. So that was actually kind of scary that it was even a split decision to begin with. But yeah, speaking truthfully, I think definitely Hitchins he's feeling amazing, and he did it having to fight a fighter that it was his first title defense. It was Paro's first title defense. He just took the belt from Subriel Matias. So I'm sure he's feeling amazing, and he showed good skills. He outboxed Paro for from like the halfway point of the fight all the way to the end. It was all Richardson Hitchins. He looked amazing in there. He looked sharp, and I think Paro, for him, it's kind of sad because he was an underdog going against Matias. It was kind of an underdog story when he got the belt, and now he's back with no belt. So it's kind of sad.
To be honest, I was a little sad because I was going for Paro, but that's not what happened. Hitchison did a pretty good job. I think the first few rounds, I want to say like the first 4, I think it took him like a little bit of a slow start for him to get the engine running. I think he was downloading the data, and then I think he was making the adjustments. He did a pretty good job of then towards like the middle, towards the end. He was doing a pretty good job of just controlling the fight, but most importantly, the pace as well. He was easily able to read Paro, and he just took in my eyes, it was the UD decision victory. But yeah, from here though, like it's pretty interesting how the landscape of 140 has changed, just this year alone. How does he compare to some of the other champions?
Well, he called out Teofimo Lopez.
Oh,
and
wow.
Teofimo Lopez is WBO champion. We could see a unification. It all depends on what Teofimo Lopez does. I mean, he's only fought once or twice this year, and that was in the second quarter of 2024.
What's crazy? It's crazy that Hitchins is going for the big guy at 140.
He's been calling them out, man. He's wanted Devin Haney. He's wanted Teofimo. He never wanted the Matias smoke at all.
Bro.
No, he didn't.
Matias Smoke was non-existent.
Bro,
it was a hype train.
Dude, it's not, man. Just give him some time. Anyways, Hitchins is, like I said, he called out Teofimo Lopez. Teofimo Lopez has a lot of options. I mean, I know Teofimo Lopez, they called out bout recently. So I don't know what they're on about. I don't know when we're going to what time next year we're going to see Teofimo Lopez return. But Hitchins, he has a lot of options. And Devin Haney was pretty vocal online as well. So people are trying to pin up Hitchins against Devin Haney. Devin Haney, no longer champion at 140. He's a champion in recess for the WBC. But it's very interesting to see the landscape. So here's the landscape right now. WBC champion, we have Alberto Puello. WBA, we have Jose El Rayo Valenzuela. IBF, Richardson, Hitchins. And the WBO champion, Teofimo Lopez. So all the three champions have changed besides Teofimo Lopez. He's been champion since last year. So there's a lot of room for unification. It just depends on if the champions are willing to catch the smoke with each other.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a volatile division. We've been talking about the 140 for a while now, since the beginning of this year. A ton of belt switches, and I think it just shows you how deep the competition and how deep the talent is at 140. A lot of big names there, and I'm sure in 2025 we're going to see plenty more belt switches and title holders that are new. So I have really big hopes for the 140 division. I think Hitchins is a tough champion. He definitely has a lot of skills. He's a pure boxer, slick boxer, very sharp. He looked really good in this fight. But I mean, if we're talking about just pure boxing style, I definitely think Devin Haney has a higher level. So, and Devin Haney, I'm sure, would like that fight as well because Hitchins isn't a big puncher. Hitchins doesn't have a crazy speed, or he's not great timing like a Ryan Garcia or someone dangerous with a punch. So if I was Haney, I'd like that fight a lot. So I mean, Hitchins, he's a strong champion. He's a good fighter. I don't know how well he's going to be able to face the newcomers in 2025.
Yeah, so it's possible that he may not be. He's not going to be there to stay. Then
it's possible if he takes some of these tough fights. I mean, I definitely do see a path to victory for a lot of fighters at 140.
No, you go.
I was gonna say Matias.
Oh my gosh!
It's Kryptonite.
His Kryptonite. Suriel Matias, Puerto Rican. Yeah.
What were you gonna say?
Yeah, I feel like if I were to make a bet, since 140 is such a volatile division, it's pretty for me. If I were to make a bet, I don't think we're ever going to see the current champions that you just named off right now. I think it's possible that we're just going to see a belt change. I can see Puello fighting someone in the first quarter and then just losing the belt.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then that could be same for any of the other ones too, because Lopez, I know he's having disputes with his promotion at the moment, so it's possible he could just move to 147. Who knows?
Oh yeah, maybe he could move to 147. He has he's been flirting with that idea, you know what I'm saying? Especially with big guys like Brian Norman, and I guess now he called out Boots. So, he's hinting at the move to 147. He's the only champion that I see that can last to 2025 holding the belt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Subriel Matias shall return next year.
Oh my goodness.
Okay.
No, I ain't gonna lie. Teofimo Lopez would whoop Matias. I think he might knock him out, honestly.
No, he wouldn't.
Yeah, he would.
Matias would hurt him.
Nope, he'd time him.
I'm telling you right now, Matias is coming back 2025. Is there anything else you guys want to say about the Hitchins fight? New champion at 140? Nothing?
No, just sad for my fellow Australian brother.
Your fellow? That implies that you are Australian.
By heart.
Honorary.
All of.
So that was the IBF showdown for Matchroom Boxing featuring Leon Paro as he took the loss against Richardson Hitchins, who's now the official IBF world champion and has a lot of opportunities at 140. And 140, like we mentioned, is a weight division that's always changing champions. So maybe by next year around this time, we're gonna see maybe a new group of champions that we're gonna be talking about. So let us know down below, what do you guys think about, first off, the top rank card? Do you think it was an elbow for Espinoza as he defeated Robeisy Ramirez, or do you think that Ramirez simply quit? Also, let us know about the main event, Emmanuel Navarrete, as he TKO'd Oscar Valdez with a brutal body shot. Do you think that Emmanuel Navarrete has enough what it takes to unify the division, to be another big champion at 130? And what's next for Oscar Valdez? Is his career done? Is he going to be able to fight at the world elite level once again? Also about the 140 IBF champion Richardson Hitchins. Do you think he fares well against a big name like Devin Haney or Teofimo Lopez, or is his reign as 140 champion going to be a very short-lived term? Also, don't forget to like and subscribe and follow us on all forms of social media. We're on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Lastly, don't forget to join our Discord. We're trying to build up a community, and you guys joining will be greatly beneficial towards us. But this was Pablo, and I was Rulo and Asa, and this was the Last Round Podcast. Thank you for watching.